Well,
Welcome,
welcome.
everyone.
Yeah, welcome. How are you, Ellie?
I'm okay. I'm okay. We're getting a late start today for sure.
Oh, I
Um,
know. I was already like a late start and then like to the day, I feel like. And then I had to take my son to the pediatrician. So then it was just, yeah, but I'm glad I got it out of the way and like I don't have to break up my day. So thanks for being flexible with me.
yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, part of the offness is daylight savings time. So,
I'm
here we
so
are.
tired. And
I
it's
know.
not even daylight savings. It's the birth this weekend. I was up till 6 a.m.
Mhm.
And then Ellie graciously swapped with me around then. Well, you swapped with me earlier, but I didn't get to bed till around 6. And yeah, I just feel like, and then I had another birth this week where I had to wake up at 3 a.m. And so I just feel like the 2 nights in a week, I'm just like tired, just like feel like I
Yeah.
can't catch up. And then daylight savings time was happened on top of that.
Yeah, and I didn't take daylight savings time into account when I was swapping out with you.
Yeah.
So,
I was
when
too happy you didn't.
I just
I
totally
wasn't.
spaced it. I totally spaced it. I got up with Brindley at it was like just like a few minutes until 2 a.m. is when she
Mm-hmm.
woke up. And I got up with her and I was getting her back to sleep. And I just glanced at the clock and it said 3:15. And I was like, what? What? I swear when I got up, it was like almost 2. Thought I had all this time still. And because my plan was to get up at 4 to check in with
Yeah.
you. And so, yeah, I was like so confused. And then I realized I did not realize this until I got up and was driving to the hospital to relieve you, that it was daylight savings time. And that's because I looked at my clock in my car and I was like, well, that's
Uh-huh.
not right. And then I was like, oh, it makes so much more sense now why I lost an entire hour while I was only awake for like 15 minutes and how I thought I was going to get way more sleep than I
Yeah. Well,
did.
I was pretty happy because I was just zonked, and it was right around the time that she was like deciding to get an epidural or not. That I was like half asleep, like supporting her at this point, and like I looked at the clock and I was like, oh my gosh, it's already been an hour since I last checked the clock. That's crazy. We've just been in this labor land world. That time's just going so fast. I was like, oh, thank goodness. I only have another hour until Ellie comes and checks in with me because I'm so tired. And then when I realized it was daylight savings, I was like, oh my gosh, I really hope Ellie didn't take that and didn't check out because I was like just falling asleep watching, like supporting her. And then when after she got her epidural, we all did take a nap. So I took a nap for like 30 or 40 minutes when you came, and I was like so sleepy when I went out, and I was like trying to talk to the nurse to be like, hey, my colleague is like can't get into the entrance, like can you send someone down? And my contacts were like sticking to my eyes and I couldn't see anything, and I'm like, I like, can you send so I didn't have shoes on or anything. I'm like yelling at her and she looked like so confused. And then she was like, okay, like I can go down and get her. And I'm like, oh, I thought that maybe you could just call the security guard. Like, you don't have to walk through the whole hospital to get her. Like, I'll go get her. So I like went back and like got my shoes on and like shuffled out, and they were all just like staring at me because you would walk past the nurse's station.
Oh
I was
my.
like so out of it. I was like, I didn't have a thought in my brain. I couldn't see anything because of my contacts. I was just like, I
I
can't.
know. I was like sitting there at the entrance and I texted you and I thought maybe you were like napping or just like got really
Mm-hmm.
busy. And I was like, well, I don't want to call you if you're napping, but also I don't want to stand down here for 15 minutes waiting for these
Yeah.
doors to like open on their own. And no one was
Yeah.
answering. So, anyways, yeah,
No,
and
it's
then
totally okay.
this is the second time that you've handed off to me right after an epidural. And we've
And then you
literally
have the
just
easy
slept.
shift.
Yeah, and we've literally just like slept for a couple hours and then woke up and we're like fully dilated and like ready to push.
Yeah.
It's
That's
literally the exact
okay.
same thing.
That's okay. I'd
really
rather have
tired.
gone home and gotten some sleep than been there through a couple more hours for the birth and everything. And then also, like, Desi had woken up with a fever that night. So I just was like wanting to get home so, I could
Oh
be
yeah.
there when he woke up next. But he ended up sleeping like completely through the night. But then when he woke up, he was definitely happy that I was home to nurse him when he woke up. So yeah,
That's
but yes, I actually, so I know you posted about this, but like we don't do anything for daylight savings time. We just like figure it out. Like
yeah.
the thought of like making schedules where like we put them to bed 15 minutes incrementally later for like all week sounds so stressful to me. I'm just like, no, we just like figure it out. And honestly, I don't know about you, but I prefer the spring forward versus the fall back with kids,
Oh yeah.
because the fall back, they're up so much earlier. And so your day just feels so long, where I feel like obviously they sleep in an extra hour depending on your schedule. Like it's not too bad to wake them. Usually kids kind of like wake up and are awake. But then like I feel like it's way easier to try to like put them to bed like a little earlier and try to like push them to bed earlier than it is to like when kids wake up, they're like wide awake. To try to get them to go back to sleep is like impossible when they're like, why would
Like
I go
an
back to sleep? It's
hour.
morning. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And it's like just, yeah, like an hour of trying to push them to go back to sleep. But when your kids wake up at 6:30, 5:30 is a big difference. But if you're just trying to keep them up like a little bit later and go to bed like a little bit, or go to bed a little bit earlier, that's not that hard to try to get them to go to bed a little bit earlier.
Well, and I prefer spring forward because I feel like during the fall and winter time, we're so like rushed for trying to get things done in the evening. Like,
Yeah.
we want to play, especially when it starts getting nicer or we have a nice day. Like, we want to play outside, but
Mm-hmm.
we also need to eat dinner and we need to do baths. And it just makes it feel like something's lifted off of me when there's more
Mm-hmm.
daylight and I'm just
Oh,
not
yeah.
rushing to get everything done by dark. And then when it's dark, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so late. We got to get all this stuff done, and then I get
Yeah.
grumpy. So I just
Especially with it being
prefer.
like it's been nicer this month, and so like there's
Mhm.
been many days where I've been playing outside with the kid, like me and Joe have been outside with the kids playing, and then it's getting dark, but we're like still wanting to play for like 30 or
Yeah.
40 more minutes. And so it's like, yeah, so I think the extra daylight will be nice.
Yeah, I was so excited last week because we had like one nice day and we were outside and
Mm-hmm.
we were outside until it got dark and I told the kids,
Yeah.
I was like, next week we're gonna be able to stay out here longer because it's gonna be
Yeah.
light longer, and they were so excited. So yeah, it's just I just don't stress over it. It's like I've
Me either.
tried when they were like little, obviously with my first, like I tried the whole like maybe I need to adjust things, and it was just way too much. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Why am I doing this? It eventually works itself out.
It
So
does, yeah. And we did like we put them to bed probably like usually they go to bed at 7:30. Put them to bed more at like 8 last night because that's more like than 7
yeah,
adjusted time. And so like we put them to bed like a little bit later than normal, but I feel like now tonight we'll just go to bed like normal time, and then yeah, they'll just like they're pretty good now too about kind of like playing in their room or their bed until they kind of fall asleep. So yeah, I
yeah.
feel like it's
Brittany
definitely way
napped
easier.
yesterday. She did not nap
Oh
yesterday,
no.
and so she still went to bed. She went to bed at
Yeah.
6:30, which
Yeah.
is like 5:30. So,
Was she
but it
up
worked
really
out.
early or was she fine?
Nope, she slept until like 7 o'clock. So,
Well,
but we had a
good.
late start today because both kids slept longer and I was having a hard time getting up. So I was just like, I'm just going to kind of like take a shower, get ready while they're sleeping, and we'll just have a little bit of a later start. And then like, my body felt like it was like 7, and I was like, okay, we're doing good. And I look at my clock and I'm like, it's 8 o'clock. We got to get going.
Yep.
They'd missed breakfast at school, so we had to still do breakfast at home and all the things. But yeah, it's okay. It'll all work out. I'm
Yeah,
just
I
glad I
know.
didn't
I'm not.
have to like work at the hospital today or something.
Yeah. I'm not. We're gonna have to get into a better routine. Alda, we finally made a final decision on where she's going to kindergarten, and we're taking her out of her private school and gonna be sending her to like a a charter school in the area. I don't really want to say which school because I don't really want to like blast
Sure.
where my kids go to school. But it's going to be an earlier start and everything in like full-time school now for her. And so, because she goes half days now, 3 days a week. So I'm like, oh, we're going to have to really get into a more like solid routine. I already told my husband, I'm like, well, it's right at the time you leave for work, so we're just going to have you drop her off every day so me and Desi can stay in our same routine. He's like, that's fine. But yeah, I'm excited for the change come fall, but it's going to be like a big adjustment for us, but also for her, I feel like, because now she doesn't go to school till 9 a.m. and it's only 3 days a week. And so we just like, if we want to have like a slow morning, like we can kind of thing, unless I have meetings or something. But yeah, so, but I think it's going to be good. It'll be nice to have, I'm like, I feel like I'm seeing the end of the childcare situation as with having young kids of like, yeah, I still have my son to get there, but like, it's cool to be like, oh my gosh, like my daughter's just going to go to school and I'm not going to have to pay for it like all day. So
yeah.
That's going to be so exciting. So yeah, I know. Are you guys sending Brax to public school?
Yeah, we don't really have any other options out here.
Oh yeah. Is it like I mean, are the schools good?
What?
Yeah. Are the schools like pretty good schools? Like everybody kind of sends their kids there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different in small town versus trying to figure out school systems in the city. Yeah, so
like we just have one option, for elementary school, and it's just no options really. So everyone goes unless you're homeschooling. That's definitely gaining popularity.
I was gonna say, do a lot of people homeschool like out there? I would assume so in a smaller town, or no?
More so now than they used to, but like none of our friends are homeschooling.
Yeah.
And there are some private schools, but they're like 20 minutes the opposite direction of like the city. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So not convenient at all.
No.
So,
yeah. Yeah, we just honestly, when we made the decision, we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to get back like this much money every month of like not sending her, because there will be a year between when Desi goes to preschool and when she's in kindergarten. So, I mean, we'll still have to pay the nanny 1 day a week and stuff, but I'm like, oh, we're going to have a whole year where we're not paying like tuition. So that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. The only decision we really had to make was where's he going to go before and after school.
Oh, yeah. So, like, does your daycare have the option of before and after?
So, our daycare, after pre-K, like, after summer, so he will no longer be able to go there. So, Brindley will continue to go, but then he has to go somewhere else for before and after school care. And there's 2 options.
Oh, okay. So, does your school have options?
Yeah, so the school has an option, and then there's like an outside option where he would have to ride the bus to and from.
And
I really don't want him riding the bus yet.
Yeah.
And so I was, then it just narrows it down for you. Like there's not a lot to choose from. So we had to figure that out, and I think it'll be good. It's obviously so much cheaper.
Oh, yeah. Than like full-time daycare.
It's like a quarter of what we're paying now for daycare for him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that'll be a good chunk of money.
You got one kid out of daycare. Yep. You're getting there.
Back in our pocket / into school fundraisers, field trips.
Oh, yes. I know. That's what I was saying. I was like to Joe, I was like, well, since we're not paying tuition, maybe we should have her do gymnastics 1 more day a week because she loves gymnastics, or we should sign her up for soccer. And he's like, you're giving away all the money we're getting back.
Yeah. We'll have Brax will do something, probably basketball or t-ball or something.
Yeah, Alda's been asking about soccer lately, so I'm thinking about signing her up to try, because it is like nicer how like gymnastics goes year round, where like soccer is like usually a season. So I was like, maybe we can try, but I don't really want her starting a new sport in the fall just because I feel like full-time school is going to be such a big adjustment that then doing like extra things in the evenings is going to be just like too much for her at first. So, but we'll keep with gymnastics. I know, right?
And then I don't want to do anything in the evenings.
We're almost there. I feel like time goes so fast with kids. Like I'm like, oh, like it's only gonna be a year and a half until Desi's in school. Like, and I'm like, oh, that's so soon. Like we just have these holidays and these things, and then we're gonna. It's like time goes so fast. You're just going from like one thing to the next kind of thing, and so
we were talking about family vacation because we normally take our vacation in September after school's back in session because it's less busy everywhere and we've had that flexibility the last few years. And now I'm like, well, Brax is going to be starting kindergarten, which is going to be an adjustment. I don't really want to like take him out a month in.
Yeah,
like,
for like
I don't
a week.
Mind, like taking him out for a vacation. Like I have no problem doing that. Like moving forward.
Yeah, but right when he starts,
Yeah, so we've been trying to figure that out when we're gonna go, and I'm just like, I really liked our September vacation because it's still warm and it's not busy and flights are cheaper and everything's cheaper. But so
and it's still warm if you go south. It's still really hot. So but it's probably better. It's probably like not as blistering hot as like June, July and stuff in August. So yeah, we don't really know so we're going on a family trip down to Texas for the solar eclipse next month with my husband's family. But we're only going for like a long weekend. Like it's not going to be long at all. And then May we're going down to my brother's to see him graduate college. And then other than that, we like don't really have it. I'm trying to convince Joe to maybe we do like a camping trip in Colorado for a few days this summer. But really, me and Joe are planning on taking a like expensive ski trip for our 10-year wedding anniversary at the end of the year. So we're just like, we gotta like save, like I'm like, that's the priority, not a family trip this year, because like it's our 10-year wedding anniversary. We've been like kind of planning on going on a big trip for forever for our 10-year wedding anniversary, and we really want to go skiing, which is just not cheap to do. And so we're like, yeah, that's our priority. So we'll see if we end up actually taking a trip this summer or not, but I keep being like too, I'm like, maybe next year, I'm like, Alda needs to go to the beach because I grew up going to the beach all the time because I live 2 hours from the beach. And I'm like, she's never played in the ocean yet. I mean, she's been to like, well, she was like not even one yet, but when we went to Scotland and Wales and we like hung out on like the sea. So not like the beach, but like the sea in Wales. And then she's flown over the ocean multiple times, like around the ocean. I'm trying to think if she's ever been. No, she's never been to the beach. She's seen the ocean, but never been like played at the beach before. So yeah, I'm like, we need to plan that soon because I feel like it's getting weird that she's like, she'll be like 6, that she's, I mean, just as someone who grew up going to the ocean all the time, I'm like, it's starting to get weird that you've never been to the ocean and played. But I also hate the ocean. Joe loves it. I hate the ocean, the waves, the water. It scares me. I don't like it. I have anxiety about the ocean, especially the kids in the ocean. And so I'm like, okay, but at this point, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, she just needs to, like, we need to rip off me. Because also, like, next year, Desi will be 3. So I'm like, they'll both love it at that stage. So I don't know. Because I know you guys go to Texas a lot. What is like the beach there like? Like, is the waves really crazy? Because I just grew up in like Jersey Beach where there's just like a lot of riptides, a lot of jellyfish. And so like, I don't want to do that.
I mean, when we went to Galveston and I felt like I really enjoyed that beach because, and of course it's going to depend on like the weather and what's happening out in the ocean.
Yeah, but it's technically it's not like the open ocean, it's the Gulf. Yeah, which I went to the Gulf in Alabama before and I loved it. Like we went on a family trip. I loved that. And so I didn't know if kind of that side of the Gulf was the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly calm. I mean, there's definitely waves. But what I liked about where we were at was it was shallow for so far. that, like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to worry if the kids were playing, like, they
It's not
could
just like a
play.
drop off.
It
Yeah.
didn't just drop off, and it wasn't super deep and all of that. So like they could literally just sit there and play, and they were fine. And if we wanted to like go down there, I could just like sit there and whatever. So I
Yeah.
just really liked it. Obviously the beach in Alabama is much prettier. And like Florida beaches are much prettier.
Yeah. It was
But
pretty clear water, I remember, in Alabama. Like it was the
yeah.
same thing if it was like really far out,
Mhm.
and we went, I think we actually, yeah. So the time I went was on a church trip. So I was with like all of my friends. And so like, I mean, we were just playing like it was a giant swimming pool, like,
Yeah.
cause it's just like flat, like it's so shallow for so long. Like it was
Mhm.
so much fun. But I was like a teenager, so that's just my memories of it. But as a parent, it's a whole new perspective of like what beach
Yeah.
do I want to go to. So yeah, but
Yeah.
I do like that. But it also like is not a very expensive flight, nor is it a very long
Mm-mm.
drive to go to like
Mm-mm.
Texas, the
Yeah.
Gulf
Yeah,
in
that's why we
Texas. So
chose it. That's why we chose it because we after we drove to Alabama, we decided next time we went anywhere we would fly, and the flights were just so much cheaper, like literally half the price to
yeah.
fly there versus to fly to Alabama. So that was one of the deciding factors. And so yeah, I mean like our condo was nice. It wasn't as nice as the beach house we had in Gulf
Mhm.
Shores. The
Yeah,
beach wasn't
but
as
that's okay.
pretty, but it was very safe and
Mhm.
like easier for me to like relax.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
and
that's the
also like
priorities.
every year your kids get older and things just get easier, I feel like.
I know. I feel like that's the best
Stuff
thing
like
about us
that.
being done with kids is like every like I mean I feel like I really soaked in their like baby years, but I'm
Yeah.
so done with it of like I'm done with the baby years, and I'm like every time Desi gets to like a new stage, like grows out of like a certain stage, I'm like excited that he's in the next stage. Like I mean, of course there's
Yeah.
some like bittersweetness about it, but I feel like I just feel so like solidified in our decision to not have a third with the fact that like I feel really like excited and encouraged, like, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for like going on trips, and like I'm like not dreading our car trip to Texas next month because I'm like, oh, like he can watch a show, he can color, like there's so many things he can do versus when they're babies they just like scream if they're upset in the car versus
Yeah.
like being able to be distracted with I'm sorry, with snacks, with shows, like all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, like I just feel everything it gets slowly like easier each
Yeah.
stage. So
Yeah, it's so funny. So
yes.
our client this weekend, she was talking to me and she was like, I don't know if I'll ever do this again.
Yeah.
She was like,
I
I
told
don't
her
know
to
if
wait.
I'll
She told me that too.
yeah, yeah. She was like, I don't know if I'll ever do this. Why do people ever do this more than once? And I was like, well, I mean, there is a level of things that you just kind of forget about or like
I
don't
told her
think
that.
about as much. And so
Or you
I
look
feel like
back
it
with
just depends on your
perspective.
experience. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she was like, well, I mean, you've done it twice. Like, would you have another one? And I was like, well, when we had my daughter, literally moments after we had her, we were like, never again.
Yeah. That's exactly
then,
how it was with Desmond. It was one of the first things out of my mouth was I'm so because we had already made the decision.
yeah.
I like literally one of the first things out of my mouth was I'm so glad I never have to do this again. Like, I'm so glad
Yeah.
I'm done.
And then now I'm like, I don't know, like maybe,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
It wouldn't be like the
it's just
worst
so
thing to ever
funny.
happen in the world. Like after,
Yeah.
you have the
Like, I'm
perspective.
not
Yeah.
necessarily planning. I'm not planning. Like I have friends who are
Yes.
like planning to have more
Mm-hmm.
kids. I'm not planning to have any more kids, but if it were to happen, like it wouldn't be the worst,
Mm-hmm.
the end of the world. But
Yeah.
I'm like every stage is a little bit easier, and I'm like get further away from it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I
I'll just
know.
help people
Yeah.
through it. I don't know if I want to live
Exactly.
it myself.
That's how I feel. Is like I feel like there's the birth workers who just like love birth and pregnancy, and so like they want to keep doing it like themselves. And then I'm like the opposite of like I see people doing it all the time, and I'm constantly reminded how hard it is, and like it reminds me I don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was talking to me about that too. She was like, I thought we wanted like 3 or 4 kids, but like during the pregnancy, I was just like, this is so hard. And then now, like with birth, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why do people do this?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she was so sweet. But yeah, I was like, yeah, but like wait till you like get the baby at the end and you see how your postpartum, because you might like love having a baby and love like, you know, and then like you like right now, since it was her first baby, I'm like, you don't have the reward yet. So you don't know like the goodness of, you know, like if you like
Oh,
being
yeah.
a mom and you like the baby stage and like all that stuff. And so then like depending on how easy having a kid is for you or how much you love it, like you might then have perspective on like, okay, that was well worth going through the suckiness
Yes.
of pregnancy and birth, but like wait until you have that reward and then you might feel a little bit
Which
differently about
I
it.
think she probably will feel differently about it. I don't know, but just based off of like that first like hour, 2 hours,
Yeah. Oh,
you
I
know,
wish.
she
I
was
hate
just,
missing those
I know,
when
I
I
hate
swap with you
that.
guys. Yeah, but
I
it's also
know.
okay. But I usually like drive home after an overnight with the adrenaline rush of a birth. And so when I was
Mhm.
driving home after you swapped with me and I had just been napping, it was like the first time I feel like ever I was like legitimately afraid I was gonna fall asleep. And so I ended up calling my mom and just talking to her the whole time
Mhm.
because she easily can wake up and then like go back to sleep,
Yeah.
because I was like, this is one of the first times I'm like, and it wasn't a long drive home at all, but I was like legitimately worried that I was gonna fall asleep. But yeah, because
Yeah.
you do get that, even just as a birth worker, you get that like adrenaline
Mhm.
rush after a little bit the birth. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. She just
yeah.
kept saying that was so crazy. That was so crazy. And then
It
she
is
would just be
crazy.
like, I don't need anything. I'm just so happy.
I hope that she schedules with me for her postpartum so I can see them.
Yes.
Cause
I
yeah,
know.
but they were so sweet. They were such a sweet couple, and we should talk about this. So they like were a great example of like, and I kind of want to talk about this on social media too, like collaborative care with an OB group. And one, like
Yeah.
I love working with smaller OB groups, like, because
Mhm.
there's just so much more like personalized care, I think. And of course, we say this all the time, but like, just because I'm thinking it all the time doesn't mean that you've heard it a bunch of times to the people who are listening it. But like, not every hospital and OB group is the same. If you're like, hey, I'm going to have a hospital birth in the OB, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't shop around for your care, like interview
Right.
providers, because there is such a big difference between these like large hospital, large OB groups of like 8 or 10 OBs versus like the one we were working with this weekend. We had 2 births within this week, is like 3 providers, and they all
Mhm.
have like they all work together because they all have very similar values and stuff. And so I just find it's so much easier to get that really collaborative personalized care at like a smaller
Mhm.
hospital with a smaller B group, because all the doctors know you, they know your case, they know your priorities, they all have similar values because they're all like have chosen to work together in like a small OB group. And anyways, yeah, it was just a great example this week. There was a lot of conversations the whole week about whether she should be induced or not based on some like soft medical markers, and they just took so much time to like counsel her on the decision, counsel her on the true risks and the benefits of
Mhm.
staying pregnant versus induction, counseling her on different options, and then also offering different options. It's so crazy. So I had a client not too long ago who had a very similar situation, but with a large hospital, large OB group in the area of like soft markers for a medical induction, but she like really didn't want an induction. So she was trying to like talk to them about like, do I really need an induction or not? She ended up
Mhm.
deciding not to get an induction, kind of like this client did, like didn't decide right away to get an induction. And they literally were like, okay, well, if you don't want to listen to us, then we just won't see you until you go into spontaneous labor. So like just, she was 39.5 weeks. They were like, just come into L&D when you go into spontaneous labor. So like they didn't schedule any follow-up checkups, any like follow-up testing. And I was the one who like made her call and ask for follow-up testing and stuff. Cause I was like, if you have soft medical markers for an induction, you shouldn't just be sent home to be like,
Yeah.
okay, well, you don't want to listen to us, so just either come back at 41 weeks when you want an induction or just come in spontaneous labor. I was like, no, like you should
Yeah.
be being like monitored and checked on and like all that stuff. Just because you don't want to like listen to their recommendation doesn't mean that they shouldn't like care at all anymore about your
I
pregnancy and your
mean,
baby's health.
that just feels like patient abandonment.
It is. And then it's also like dangerous because it's like the medical indications were not like dire emergency indication. So it was like, it was totally reasonable for her to be offered like follow-up, just like testing and checkups to see if it got more serious or not. But it was just kind of like well, we wash our hands of the situation then if you don't want to listen to our medical recommendations, when she knows that the medical recommendations are not like emergency black and white like indications for induction. And inductions have risks too. So like there's, you have to weigh the pros and cons of the situation. And so anyways, it was so opposite this experience, whereas the soft medical markers for potential induction. And not only did they have her come in L&D and get monitored for 4 hours to see like, okay, how's baby doing when he's on the monitors for 4 hours straight? How is his, and like we're like, to give her reassurance that he was doing okay, and to kind of have more data to go by. And then on the other hand, then they offered to do all of the tests again, like to follow to see if it was just an anomaly that he didn't pass some of the tests and stuff. And so, and they got her in right away for testing and everything, because like I said, those smaller OB groups just have more resources, more time for personalized care. And so it was like they spent hours more with her and talking her through the options and giving her different options instead of just saying, this is our preferred recommendations, you either follow it or you don't. Like they gave her lots of different options to consider. And anyways, it's just so interesting as a doula when you see such like big differences between care, and people don't understand that.
Well, and I've had a couple clients recently say like, well, it doesn't really matter who I'm seeing because like they may not be there when I give birth or whatever. But I'm telling you from a nurse's perspective, those nurses treat you differently based on who your care provider is, because they know how that care provider operates, how they treat their patients, how they handle certain situations. And the nurse 100% kind of follows, to an extent, follows the provider. And obviously the provider's writing orders, or that group is writing orders.
And giving the nurse the recommendations of how to, of like what medical treatment the patient needs too. No, I totally agree. And I've seen that at hospitals of like different OB groups. It's like a 1,000 times different experience with my clients with certain OB groups versus other OB groups based on the nurses. And I mean, like you could even like, if you don't have a doula in your community, like you only have like one local hospital, because I know not everybody lives in a big city like us where there's lots of different options, or maybe your health insurance only covers one hospital in the area or something. You can call labor and delivery and ask a nurse like who they recommend in the area, like ask a nurse who they recommend, because a lot of nurses, like I hear all the time a nurse saying, oh yeah, that like we love working with your group of doctors. Like they have preferences of what doctors they like working with and don't like working with, because they see the differences in care at the different hospitals. So I totally agree. It is a very different experience based on provider group. And also I think something important for that too. So like, even if you say you have one option for an OB group, like there's like, okay, you live in a small town, you have one option that your insurance covers. It's like a couple OBs that work together. I've heard some people be like, well, I don't mesh with this OB, but I might as well see them because they might be the ones at the birth anyways, like during the prenatal care. But I would encourage you to find the doctor that you're most comfortable with for your prenatal care, because your prenatal care is important. Making and being counseled on these decisions, like like the health of your pregnancy, being checked up on and feeling like you are comfortable with somebody to like talk with them and ask questions and all that stuff is important. And then 2, end a pregnancy, like how to end a pregnancy of like not like terminate, but like how to end a pregnancy is like when you're getting to birth is very important conversations. And we see very different types of care based on like, I just had the example of 2 clients who both had babies measuring over the 90th percentile. One has been talking to her about since 32 weeks, your baby's so big, we're not going to be able, you can't go to your due date. And then now she's getting closer to her due date, and they're like, she's like, I can't go to my due date, like to me, like freaking out about it. Where like my other client had a baby who was over the 90th percentile, and her doctor was just like, your baby might be big, might not be, maybe he just has a large femur bone because you're tall, whatever. And then like it's just like, okay. And then like no more conversations about it. So then like she didn't feel this like stress of like, oh my gosh, like I need to give birth, because my baby's big, like, because it hadn't been being said to her over and over and over again for the last 2 months, you know? And so anyway, so those discussions on how you're counseled at the end of pregnancy, and the same one I just talked about being talked through with induction, being asked, those things really matter at the end of pregnancy when it comes to your birth experience, the birth experience that you want. Your counseling at the end of pregnancy about induction or testing or waiting for spontaneous labor or whatever all matter to getting to your healthiest and preferred birth outcomes also. So anyways, I think that that's really important, that you're comfortable with your doctor and you feel like you can have those conversations.
Yeah, and she was such a good example of just asking for things outside of the norm. Yeah. And there was no pushback, you know. Like, a lot of people get worried to ask for those things because they're afraid of the pushback. And there was none, you know. But had she not asked, she wouldn't have had the exact same
options,
events, you know, options and stuff like that. I mean, she had an epidural, and so they came in and got her ready for pushing and gave her the same spiel that they gave just about every epidural birth. And she was like, yeah, can I not do that?
And then they're probably just like, yeah, sure.
They were like, yeah, I mean, you know, we're all here to help you. And if we can get you in that position and you feel comfortable and safe in that position, like, we'll try it and see how it goes. And, you know, it ended up being that she ended up getting back on her back anyways. But
and just felt like more productive pushing that way.
Yeah, but she at least got to try what made most sense to her and her body and her mind and all of that, and find out that it wasn't the most effective. But you know,
and sometimes, like, I tell people that all the time, like, pushing on your back is not evil. It's not bad. Like, some people push most effectively on their back, especially with an epidural, and some people also just like it. But that's not, but the point is that it's not the best position for everybody. And also, like, position change is the most important thing. So, like, just like not being on your back pushing for 3 hours is way more important than ending up delivering on your back. So, like, just,
and that's
so
the
even
exact
just
conversation we had.
So it's like position change matters, of like maybe moving into the different position to help move her baby down and like help move things along. And feeling empowered to like make your own choices during pregnancy and everything is so important. And something that I think so this is why, like, if you guys haven't listened to our advocacy episode, please do, because you can learn all the birth positions ever. You can like watch all the videos, look at all the guides, take childbirth education, and be like, oh, these positions are good for pushing out a baby. But if you don't have the skills or the confidence, stupid cat, to advocate, they're like always attention deprived on Mondays because I don't work downstairs like at all on the weekends. If you don't have the skills to advocate for yourself and to ask those questions and ask for those options and the confidence to like ask for your desires, you're never going to get into those positions because you're just going to fall into like the system of what what the system typically offers and what they typically do. Do not expect your nurse or your doctor to be the one like advocating for you. That's really your job to like stand up and ask for what you want out of your birth. And so, if you haven't listened to our advocacy episode, definitely do, because you can see all the TikToks of these are the positions, which I've made them, like these are the positions you can push and whatever. But if you can't figure out how to ask for and advocate for yourself to get in those positions, you're never going to in the vulnerable position that is giving birth. Like, you have to know those skills beforehand, and your birth partner needs to know those skills beforehand also. So, I think that's a good example. Thank you to our one client this week for giving us all of our content for.
It was long, and it was not what she exactly had in mind, but it was, you know, in the end, it was as good as it could have been. So,
and that doesn't mean like I recently had a client who, like, she had an epidural for her first birth, and then had a really bad experience. And I think that she like put the bad experience on the epidural. So like she really wanted to go like unmedicated her second birth. And so there was a point where like she was like, I want an epidural, like at her second birth. And I was like, just because you get an epidural again doesn't mean you're going to have the same experience. You know, like you can have things not go according to plan and still leave the birth feeling empowered and feeling heard and feeling seen and feeling like it was a great birth. And so I was like, you have a doula now. You are at a different hospital with different types of support and different advocate and like the more ability to advocate for yourself. You're with a different OB group that does like more advocacy and cares more about your personal preferences. Like all of those things are going to lead you to a better experience. It doesn't mean that just because you got the epidural again that you're going to have that same experience as your first birth where you felt manipulated, you didn't feel heard, you didn't feel like you had patient preference and like in the decisions and stuff. And I think that that's really important because you can have the goal of like leaving your birth feeling like you had autonomy over yourself. And so then that gets put into like, well, then I don't want to have an epidural because I want to have like more control. And that's okay too. That was a large part of me not getting an epidural during my birth because I really like feeling in control of my own body and of my experience. And I didn't want to relinquish some of that because there is some relinquishment with getting an epidural if you're relying on other people. But there's also the fact that like you can have an epidural and still feel empowered and autonomous over your birth experience with the right support and advocacy skills and all of those types of things. And so I think that's important for people to know too, that just because some people got an epidural or got an induction and felt this way about their birth doesn't mean that has to be your story with the right skills and support system.
Yeah, I mean, I say all the time, which you guys will hear more about my birth story later this month, but I say all the time, had my births gone differently, I might not have made it without an epidural. Like, like, I mean, there was a point in time where I was like, if this is how it's going to be, and it's going to be like this for a long time, I cannot do it. Like, I cannot endure this. And I tell people that all the time because I feel like people look to us and they're like, well, did you get an epidural? And I'm like, I didn't. But I went in with an open mind and it was not off the table because that's funny. So unpredictable.
We're literally the same person because that's my go-to answer when people ask me if I got an epidural because I never like just say, oh, I didn't, I had an unmedicated birth. Like you can do it. Like, cause that's not true because there are so many birth situations I've been in as a doula that I'm like, if this was my birth, I would have 100% gotten epidural, like 100%. And so like I tell people that all the time, and they're like, they look at me like maybe they ask me prenatally if I ever had an unmedicated birth. Some clients really want to know if you have experienced it if they're planning an unmedicated birth because they want to know like have you experienced this or not, which like I can support every different birth that I've never experienced before as a doula. But like some people, it makes them feel like more confident about it. They want to have a doula who has had an unmedicated birth. And so like for the ones who have asked me and I've told them like, yeah, I've had unmedicated births. Lots of times when they're in labor and it's really hard, they'll be like, how did you do this? Like, how did you do this? And I'm like, well, I didn't do this. Like I did my birth unmedicated. I didn't do what you're experiencing unmedicated. Like I didn't do 12 hours of back labor unmedicated. I didn't do a 36-hour induction unmedicated. I had a 6-hour and a 1.5 hours, simple, easy, baby's in the perfect position. I pushed them out easily, like births. Like, so it was much different than, okay, you've pushed for 4 hours. Okay, you have a posterior baby. You're getting an induction for 3 days. Very, very different to do an unmedicated birth my way than it is to do it if you are given different birth experiences. That could have just as easily been my birth experiences, but I was lucky not to have those issues and complications. And so it was easier. I mean, was it still hard to have an unmedicated birth? Yes, of course, but it's hard to give birth no matter how you give birth. Like it is hard.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just birth.
Yeah, it is. It's so unpredictable.
Which we are going to talk about this. We'll close with this because we're already running out of time because we can just chat for forever. We're just having like a free chatting episode, but we're just talking. But I was so impressed with the prenatal yoga class that we did with our clients. for birth
too.
prep. I'm like, I'm gonna like recommend all my. I mean, not that I never referred clients to do prenatal yoga, especially with Jenny from Full Circle Yoga. Shout out if you live in Kansas City, she's amazing. And I've heard that her classes are harder than other prenatal yoga classes in the area, but I loved it. Like as a doula, I loved it because she focused on preparing your mind for birth and like doing hard things and learning how to breathe through it and try to relax your body through pain, which is just the biggest thing that we see as doulas, people needing prep around, because you can do all the childbirth education, but without the mental preparation, it's really, really hard to cope with birth.
And she gave such good examples of what it's like to work through contractions. And sometimes, like, even when I'm teaching people, like I give similar examples, but everyone like wants to know how can I practice? And I'm like, well, it's hard. It's hard to really like simulate contraction. But she did such a good job with it and gave them, like, I felt like really good tools to like add to their toolkit for labor and birth. It was so good. And I think a lot of people, when they do yoga, they think, oh, because I'm pregnant, like I'm not going to do as many hard things. Like it's
just light stretching, like, bond with your baby, stretch a little bit. Yeah, no, her class was not.
About you, but I was sore.
Yeah, I was too. And I'm not even like, all of our clients were like 8 and 9 months pregnant. And I'm like, gosh, I'm sore and I'm not pregnant at all. They all went around the circle and said how many weeks pregnant they are. Me and Ellie were like, we're 25 months postpartum. Like,
and at the end of it, I know I said this, but at the end of it, I was like, man, I'm glad I don't have a third trimester bump to carry through this.
Yes. But it was just like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally going to be suggesting this to clients now, because she, and Jenny's a doula also. And so like, she obviously comes in with that a little bit, but she said, like, when I first met her, her kids go to the same private school my daughter goes to. And when I first met her, like she said, she opened her studio and got into prenatal yoga because she was seeing a lot of the prenatal yoga was very just like stretching, bond with your baby, breathe, like whatever. And wasn't that like, no, you can do hard things. Your body can do hard things. You're not like a delicate glass vase when you're pregnant, and you can do hard things and you can learn how to work through them. And that is like so important for birth, to not feel like, oh, I've just been like lounging around and laying around for 9 months, and like, to get your body physically like participating in the process during pregnancy can help so much with birth. And she also like knows a lot about fetal positioning and stuff. And so she focuses on stretching areas of the pelvis and stuff that will help your body prep for birth, and move baby down and everything. So yeah, I was just totally, and we've been trying to get her on the show, but our schedules are always conflicting. And so we'll definitely have to talk about it more when we can finally get her on the show, because I was very impressed, to the point where like we do in our, for those listening, in our group, we do like meetups with our clients about every like 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes online, sometimes in person. And I was like, I think I'm gonna start just rotating this prenatal yoga meetup like every 3 months, so that we're getting clients always in their third, like every client in their third trimester can come take a free prenatal yoga class. Because I know some of our clients have already gone back to Jenny's class just this week. So because they loved it so much. And so I'd love to not only bring Jenny the business, but also just get our clients seeing, like, experiencing that birth prep mentality and seeing what their bodies can do and getting active, and then hopefully like continuing to go once they get introduced to it. So
yeah, I mean, just, I was thinking for clients out in my area, it is a little bit of a drive, but even if you can just dedicate like one class worth of time, like it was so valuable.
So she does all of her classes virtual too. So if anybody's, all of her classes are offered virtually also, because she said, so if anybody's listening to this and not in Kansas City and you're looking for like a more like birth prep prenatal yoga class, you can definitely look at her website. Maybe we'll link it in the show notes. Because I know she said that she has people from all over the country who like know somebody who go to her studio and have been like disappointed with the prenatal yoga offerings in their area, or maybe don't have prenatal yoga offerings in their area. Like they just maybe have regular yoga classes that can like adapt or whatever. She has people from like all over the country who zoom into her yoga classes. I think she offers all of them virtual. Like she puts on the camera for all of them for virtual classes. Yeah. So anyways, so that can be an option also, because yeah, I love her and she's so sweet, and yeah, she's just so knowledgeable about birth. And her yoga studio is so calming and everything. But yeah, definitely people in your area, just even getting out for one class. I know it's kind of far, but yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, we had a great time.
We'll get her on here to talk more about just her style of teaching and philosophy, because it was just so good. So good. So
yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to hear more from her about it. Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, well, it's been a good chat. I feel like we got some good like mom and doula combos, and it's good to kind of like rehash the week with you.
Yeah, anyone who listens to our show knows we can go off on tangents. So
I know it's just been such a busy week though, so I feel like it was good. I know, yeah. It's just been such a busy week. I feel like it was even just good for us to like recap everything and talk about it and everything also. So yeah. Oh, my black cat's being a typical black cat. She just took my phone and is trying to chew it, and then she just like took my lip gloss somewhere. I don't know.
She's definitely more needy than the other one.
Yeah, the other one is sleeping in the sun. Like she's always chill. And she's an adventurer though too.
Cat.
Yeah, she nips at you, like everything. She is super sweet, but she's just very playful. Yeah. Honestly, I'm so glad that we got her and her sister together, because it helps her sister come out of her shell having her, because I think she would be like pretty like go off in a corner and never hang out with us. Like she kind of gets more like playful because of it. But also they killed their first mouse the other day in our basement. We found them playing with a dead mouse in the morning, and we were like, gross, but also yay, because we didn't have that mouse running around pooping on our floors. So that's what we got them for, was for mouse and spider killing. So I was like, yay. I don't think that the gray cat would have really killed many things if because we were just going to get her at first, and then the black cat, we kind of couldn't separate them. So I was like, they actually, I think she's a good cat for killing things.
Yeah,
she likes to play.
The black one was like all up in my space and like out with our clients, but like the other one was just like hiding and would not near me.
Yeah, whenever when we had a mouse upstairs once, we left the door open like to let them go upstairs freely to hopefully like scare away the mouse or get her, and they did scare her away. She never came back after we left them upstairs for a couple days. But the black cat was always upstairs, because our dog is crazy, and so like I understand, and she's all up in the cat's business whenever she's around them, and so like she'll be pretty rough playing with them too. The black cat runs up there and like entices Cider, our dog. Like she like sneaks around and like hides and then bats at her, and like they're just like at each other. And then the gray cat just like sits downstairs and is just like sad that her sister is upstairs. And then she'll come up to the gate and like look for her sister, and then just run back downstairs. Like, oh no, it's too scary. There's a dog up there. But it's actually so sad. And so then we had to like when the mouse like ran away, we didn't have the mouse problem anymore, we like had to put the black cat back downstairs, because we just felt too bad for the gray cat, because you could tell she was so sad that her sister was upstairs all the time.
Oh my god,
they're so sweet though. But yeah, they're fun, and they're doing their job. They're working cats, I always say. So I'm not a cat person, so I'm like, we got them so that they would kill things.
Their purpose.
They are, yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, it was fun chatting, everybody. Sorry this episode's coming out late, but we'll get it out. We'll get it out today.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.